Hey, Dr. Amber here. Today's episode is part of a 10-part series for my virtual book tour. Yes, I am going on tour virtually, and I'm having 10 amazing conversations with people that I know and I really admire around the topics of overwhelm, overstimulation, dysregulation, all in preparation for my new book, A Parent's Guide to Self-Regulation, a practical framework for breaking the cycles of dysregulation and mastering emotions for parents and children. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. This conversation I really enjoyed, and I think you'll get a lot out of it too. And also, don't forget to order your copy of the book. You can get it on Amazon, Target, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, literally wherever you buy books. Okay? Enjoy the episode, and we'll talk soon. I'm so excited for this topic. Hey! How
Hi.
are you?
I'm doing the best that I can today.
You know, that's what we got to do. Same.
And that's all we know how to do, you know?
That's all, literally all. Like, trust me, you already know. You already know I know. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for us to chat.
Me
like I
too.
know, stay-at-home moms and feeling overwhelmed and how to become self-regulated. But I feel like we're just gonna just chat about because I love, so for everyone watching, she and I connect, and I'm gonna let you introduce yourself. I don't even know how and when we got connected, but I just love watching your content and then shooting you DMs, and it just feels like a nice chit chat all the time. Like it feels like I already know her, and I know, we know, I get it. So yes, I cannot wait.
Each other. It feels so relatable, and you need that a lot of the times.
Yes, absolutely, like all the time. So again, for joining us, we are going to be talking tonight about stay-at-home moms, feeling overstressed, and then how to help yourself become more self-regulated, what to do about it. We're going to be talking about some of the concepts from my new book, A Parent's Guide to Self-Regulation. And I really wanted to bring you on to chat about stay-at-home moms because I just love the way that you have shared about your experience of being a stay-at-home mom, and then also just, I know for me personally, broadened out the idea of what I imagine a stay-at-home mom to be. So please introduce yourself so that we can just get this conversation going.
Absolutely. So I'm a stay-at-home mom to two boys. Started off as a stay-at-home wife, probably like 7 years ago. Before being married and all that, I was like a business working woman. I was in the PR industry, just blazing trails. Not gonna lie, I wasn't a fan of it. Always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. And eventually, I ended up getting fired by my job because I was pregnant with Carter, and I had a complicated pregnancy. So I had fibroids. My fibroids were really like enlarged. It was like pretty bad, and it caused pain. And so I ended up having to go to the hospital plenty of times. And basically, because I was bedridden, my job at the time, pre-COVID, of course, fired me. I mean, they found reasons, but like, long story short, I wasn't coming in the office. I gave doctor's notes and all that. It didn't matter. So although I've always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, the way that it fell onto my lap was not in the best light. Especially because like my husband, like he is a high earning, high achieving man. And I'm not saying that to boast at all. I was there for a lot of everything that he's accomplished, and a lot of what he was doing encouraged me to be the best in the career that I was in. So like, getting fired was a gut punch, and it didn't really set me up for success to be a stay-at-home mom, to be honest. I wasn't in the mindset. I would have rather made my own like operative decision and empowered myself. It's more empowering to kind of take the reign and say, well, guys, all the work that I've done, leave it in the Raptors. I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom. But instead, it was like I was pushed out, which kind of lessened the like empowering moment of becoming a stay-at-home mom and the blessing that it really means to be a stay-at-home mom. which put me downhill. I was like, I couldn't catch my breath. I couldn't get a grip, which led to postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, and no one was talking about it at the time. So Instagram was my outlet. Nobody was there at the time on Instagram. I had like no one. But the people that I had found, it was amazing that they were like, me too. And this whole like, me too, like, I feel it too, lessened my anxiety, but also made me feel like I wasn't alone. And I started to shift my idea of what it means to be a stay-at-home mom. And really, it changed my marriage. It changed like my spiritual relationship. It just changed everything about who, like, my surroundings changed. And I recognized that I had issues with boundaries. I had issues with, you know, being not only a new wife, a new mom, but a new daughter to my parents, like a different perspective, like begging them to see a different perspective of me, becoming a new family member to Corey's family, learning how to balance that and know when to like, what I didn't even understand what that looked like. And I felt like I was people pleasing, what I didn't recognize until I went to therapy, when I was people pleasing and I had no boundaries, which led me to like spiraling out of control. So creating a community helped me a lot. And here we are now. I mean, through this long timeline, I've learned so much about like speaking up for myself and not being like, being non-apologetic about it, but also knowing when to be quiet and like knowing when to speak, knowing when not to, knowing when it's someone else's lesson to be learned, knowing when it's not my burden to carry, and then knowing when it is.
Yeah.
And parenting and family and being married as a whole person. So that's everything about me, but that's what empowered me to start this whole platform.
Yeah.
It's probably where we connected too, because we met through Jasmine and we're all like, let's empower ourselves. So yeah.
Oh, I love it. And there's already like my brain is going in all these directions of like what we could talk about next. But I just think, and that's what I love about your content and why I was like, oh, I want to have this conversation with her and like bring also in the conversation about like mental health and emotional regulation. Because for those of you watching, I'm not a stay-at-home mom and I never have been, but watching your experiences just really eye to give me a sense of what stay-at-home moms experience, but then also the impacts for mental health, emotional regulation, self, or the ability to regulate yourself when you're feeling a lot of things or feeling overwhelmed, feeling overstimulated. And then this other part that I think even you and I kind of had conversations about in the DMs, like how do we then make sure that we're modeling for our kids what we want to model to cultivate their health and their ability to self-regulate. All of that is so hard, so hard. And I think the first question I wanted to ask is, in your process of navigating all of this, ever notice how it impacted your parenting and how you were showing up for the boys?
Oh my God, yeah. I could cry
I
about
know.
it. I mean, like, isn't it deep?
So deep. I've had moments like as I've been talking about this book, for a lot of people, once you read the book, you'll find out I wrote this book. And the first chapter is really about my story of being this dysregulated, crazy woman that was trying to parent and like all the while me wanting to be the best parent, realizing all the ways that my parents messed up and how I wanted to do things differently. I had such high expectations for how I wanted to show up for my children. And then they got here and I couldn't stop yelling. I couldn't stop snapping. I couldn't stop off. My children were starting to ask me, "Are you angry?" when I just wasn't.
Yes. Their body language, you could tell even the way if you answer them a certain way, they kind of know like maybe not a good time. Is it ever a good time?
Yes, all of that. So, I final straw for me, and I tell this story in the book. My son one day, being a toddler, found him in the bathroom playing with the plunger, and I flipped
Mhm.
out because it's like, that's dirty. Why are you doing this? Just all these things. And I saw that it scared him. And it was like, oh my gosh, because I know my experience of being afraid of my father because he snapped and he was mean and just had trouble regulating himself. And I was like, the same thing that I told myself I never would. I
Mhm.
talk about these things and I share those stories. I sometimes am holding back tears because it's so deep, like you said, like the personal work of recognizing those cycles and then the deep desire to do something different is just,
It
oh,
takes a toll. It takes a, but in a good way. I feel like
yeah.
I could see it in my
Mm-hmm.
kids. Definitely. I feel like it, it, for any mom, if you could just think, if you, I know it's probably a lot going on, it's around bedtime or whatever, but
Yeah.
just think about when you're mad or when you're irritable. And honestly, we have so much on our shoulders. A lot of times it's self-induced, sometimes it's not. And your kid, you could be, let's say you're in a totally relaxed mood,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get an email or you see something like, your husband didn't take out the trash, or something triggers you, and I'll be calm. Yeah, Carter. Oh, it's okay. And I'm like, you're doing so good, mom. And then you get that email or you see that thing that triggers you and you're like, what?
Yeah.
Like on, and it's like,
Yeah.
the thing is, it is the hardest thing that I had to, my kids mirror me.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much, first of all, they mirror me in terms of like, depending on how I feel, they kind of bag away or seem scared or seem afraid to like speak.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but also, I see them talking to each other the way I would talk to them if I'm snappy.
Right.
So Carter believes he's the man in the house. Okay. So, he's like, Kaden, what are you
Yeah.
doing? Like, why are you doing it like that? Like, no, that's wrong. And I would say, like, Carter, don't talk to him like that. Who are you talking to? Like, you don't talk to him like that. And God, I've got a very, very spiritual relationship with God. He was like, he talks to him like that because you talk to him like that. And it's the most humbling. It was like the next day, the next morning, I literally have to be slow to speak. I
Mm-hmm.
would rather them call my name 50 billion times, look me straight in my face, and not answer until I can get it together. And it's it feels so good when you get to that place when you're like, I did it. I wanted to snap, but I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And what's beautiful about this too is like the moment that I recognized that I was like snappy,
Mm-hmm.
I walked backwards, right? I immediately changed because I wanted to see, like I heard what God said and I was like, okay, let me fix
Mm-hmm.
what I have going on. And Carter's tension that he would hold in his face, he would like lighten up. Like you could kind of see where he thinks he's gonna get in trouble for dropping something or like, and I'm like, oh, it's okay. And he's just like, yeah, it's okay. Like, so like the beauty is the mercy and the grace that they give you, even if you've done it forever and you decide to
Yep.
change. How forgiving and merciful and graceful that they are literally representations of God to me. Like they are like the most innocent, understanding. They will forget tomorrow. Like it's like the best.
Yes.
And you got to utilize this time right now before it's ingrained in their mind that this is who we are, before it becomes their true like way that they grew up, that they'll always
Right.
remember.
Right. Right. Oh man, that made me think of two things. And so also anybody who's watching, if you all have questions or comments, put them in the chat. We'll
Yeah,
be watching.
let's talk about it.
But the one thing I was gonna say is like, yes, I first thing, but just how important it is to think about like, oh, I got it. So I want to say this first thing first. I love what you said about you kind of took a step back and really watched what was going on around you. Because in my book, there's a framework for how to help yourself when you are trying to work on this, right? Like this cycle of how do I become more aware of how I'm interacting with my kids because I'm regulated. And when you said that you took a step back to just like watch and really see, it reminded me of a strategy that I have in the book. It's actually part of one of the frameworks. It's called pause and reflect. And so when you know that you are dysregulated, you're snapping, you're feeling a lot of rage, a lot of irritability, before you try to change anything, I want to take a few days, just pause and reflect and watch what is going on, because it's like there's probably that one moment that was like the breakthrough moment for you where you realize I need to be different. And so that's one. Great, you got your moment where you're like, look, this cannot continue. Now the next for you is to pause and just watch what's going on, like dig deep and figure out, okay, how do I feel today? What when I feel this way? How do I talk to my kids when I feel content? How do I talk to my kids when I'm irritable? What does my face look like or display to them when I'm in this place or after I read my email? Like, really just be investigative about how does my day-to-day impact me and then translate to how I show up for my, because I just think it's so important, even though it can be kind of scary because you might realize like, yo, I'm doing this a lot or I'm doing this, but it's so important to know like what's happening so then you can figure out, okay, well, how do I change it? And I think the key part is to really know how my feelings impact how I show up. Because I think that's also essentially how what we're talking about too. Like when you talk about reading that email that may have whatever for you, then you show up different. I know for me, anxiety and fear, I talked about this in the last live. Anxiety and fear are big triggers for me, and it comes with irritability. It comes off as me being angry when really I'm just scared about something,
Mm-hmm.
or
Yeah.
I'm feeling uncertainty. And so really getting really clear about like how does what's going on for me inside impact me and then impact how I show up for my kids. But then this other part that I wanted to speak to, how forgiving our children are. And I love the way that you explained that. It's like the love of God. And I explained it from a different perspective in the book is like rupture and repair. We always talk about that in psychology with attachment, right? Like when our children are small, they are so connected to us and we will make mistakes. Like we are imperfect people. And so there might be a rupture, like you yell,
Right.
you whatever. But guess what? That repair is so sweet because there's this space where we get to fix it. We get to acknowledge what happened. Mommy gets to apologize. Your child gets to learn that hey, mommy isn't imperfect, and we get to still fix this. And then we come back even stronger. And it reminds me that I talk a lot about that in the book. You know, it's okay for you to make mistakes. It's up to you to figure out, okay, how am I going to show up different? But also realize that there is repair that can happen after a rupture and not all is lost.
That is so good.
Yeah.
That is so good, especially because, like, you know how down we are on ourselves.
Mhm.
I feel like we don't, first of all, we make, we create the schedule that creates this toxic anxiety mindset that feels like you have to do all these things at this time. And then you feel bad, and it's like forever ingrained in your resume as being a mother, and it's hard for you to forgive yourself, which stops you from creating that like deeper understanding
Mhm.
and forgiveness of yourself. It honestly, you have to, the stepping back part is like,
Mhm.
so it seems so like mundane and like, or even like just tedious, like that 5 to 10 minutes is so, it's more important than working out. Like it's so important, it's important, more important than your first meal of the day. It's important. And I feel like having these like opportunities to speak to someone like yourself or reading a book to help you in motherhood is, you know what it also is, it's not you don't see it very often.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't see our mom's mom pick up a book to teach them about motherhood, because then it makes you look weak.
Right.
Or it makes you look like you're a mom that gets walked all over. Reading about bettering yourself
Mm-hmm.
in motherhood
Mm-hmm.
is not talked about enough, and it's actually so essential. It's so essential, because just like building a community, it makes you feel like you're not alone. There is a book that literally talks about how you feel right now.
Literally.
It says everything. Not only is it just a book by someone who studies it, but who is a mother themselves. Like, the full circle moment. This is the community that we're talking about. Like, and it's so important. And the thing is, I feel like there's other things that has helped me later on understand, like, other ways. And I talked about this even in my past posts. It's like, eventually I felt like I was overwhelmed with stuff, so I hired a nanny. I hired someone to clean our house. I hired, like, every single thing you could think to hire to help you, I've done. Not even all those different outsourcing will help you if you do not take care of yourself and reflect on yourself first.
Yep.
It doesn't matter, because guess what? You're going to look at the nanny and you're going to be like, why can't I be more like her? You're going to look at the laundry lady that's doing your laundry and say, I could have done that, but I didn't. And your husband, as a stay-at-home mom, who is your husband to you? Your husband's your boss. Your husband's your boss. He comes home. He doesn't, in your head, not even in his.
Right.
You're like, oh my God, he's going to come home. Dishes aren't cleaned. Nothing's cooked. Clothes all over the place. And you don't have that sense of security in the role that you play as a stay-at-home mom, because you feel like it's insignificant. There's something deeper to that. It's something so much deeper to that you have to take the time to comb through.
Yes. Absolutely. And this is why it's so important. I love the conversation, because I feel like we've talked about being a stay-at-home mom like twice.
Yes.
But like, this is so much better, but it all relates. And it's like, you know, you right now just talked about the specific challenges of being a stay-at-home mom. And think about so much of what I talk about in this book. Like, when someone reads the title, A Parent's Guide to Self-Regulation, I feel like they may think, okay, I'm going to get tools for breathing, tools for, you know, learning how to regulate myself, like really practical things. But so much of this is about your emotions, how you feel. And it's like, if we don't know how we feel, if we don't know how to investigate that and like really get to the core of like, why do I feel this way?
Right.
Why thoughts? We will never gain control over our emotion, and we'll never be able to regulate ourselves.
Right.
And you just said about undermining your role and your devaluing what you contribute to a family, just thinking about how you're thinking about your roles between yourself and your partner. All of that has so much with what's internally going on for you, and not the other people around you. We really have to get to the core of what is actually happening inside of me.
Right. And you know what? I do feel that, like, my kids, they can tell when I've made a better shift. And just like they mirrored that other part of me that I wasn't happy with,
Right.
they start to mirror the part that I'm actually like that I fixed, that I've changed, that I'm in the process of transition and changing. And then I also recognize that, like, I miss out on having fun with my kids, being that snappy person. Like, I recently started picking up on just like reading a comic book in my bed with the kids. And at first I was like, my bed? You don't get to be in my, like, I grew up being like, you don't get to be in like mom and dad's bed. And speaking of, this one over here, he doesn't feel well, so he's with mama. But yeah, and now I feel like I'm just like becoming this person who's like, you know what? I'm going to turn off my phone, and I'd rather. I felt like some of my triggers was that what I recognized later on is that I wasn't spending enough like alone, isolated time with my kids doing things that was just what would make them happy. I recognized that. I recognized that I wasn't feeding that, like, get to know me in a light that's not like, don't do this, do that. Read this book. Let's do our homework. Let's learn something. Like, let's learn nothing. Let's just sit around and, like, not even roughhouse. Like, read a book about, like, something so crazy. Like, you know. You want noodles? Yeah. Okay. Good. I'm glad he wants to eat. It's great news.
Like, just being more open. Like, I don't know, like, for me, I have this issue of being so, like, tense and, like, so, you know, rigid.
Yes.
And I catch him sometimes being like, but it's okay, mommy. It's okay if we do this. It's okay if we do this. It's okay. I'm like, it is okay.
I'm going to tell you, 9 times out of 10, Carter's always right. I'm not going to lie. I'm actually not going to lie to you. And I feel like I'm taking my, like, disciplinary card away because, like, he'll say something. Okay, oh my gosh. So this is a good example. They have a lot of playroom stuff all over the floor in our living room. That's not in the playroom.
Same.
It's in the living room. And I'm like, listen, I want us to be better stewards of our things. So I don't do, like, I'm black or white. Sometimes when it comes to stuff like this, I'm like, pick up your things, put it upstairs in the playroom. Not much conversation. Just do it. And they start picking up. I'm like, okay. And they pick it up and they go up the stairs. Well, Carter, he picks up some stuff and I didn't pay attention to what he picked up. And so I was like, Carter, pick that one thing up too. And he goes, Mom, I don't have any room and I literally have no more hands. And he said that and I looked and Corey was like, what'd you just say? And I was like, no, he's right. He's right. He's right. I don't even know. It was like, what do you do? Did you talk back? But he does talk back. But a lot of what he's saying
is facts.
And it also tells me, whenever I'm telling him to do things, I'm not thinking. I'm not being intentional about what I'm asking him to do. And I'm acting as if he's like 3 or like 2, or even then like 3 really. And he's like, I have eyes. I have a brain. This doesn't add up. For instance, another thing, Carter's like, Mom, I really want a new bed. And I was like, I want a new bed too. And he's like, Mom, you don't want a new bed. No. He goes, no, Mom, you want a new bed. I need a new bed. Need is more important than want. You got it. What am I going to say?
Like, no, you're wrong. No.
You're right. And that's where the whole disciplinary thing, I just don't even know what it looks like anymore.
Yeah.
Because what if they're right?
Yeah.
You know, like, what if they're right? Like, you got it.
I love that. And this is why my son does that too. He's such a logical, like, straightforward thinker.
Yes.
And things that are very, very like, oh, you thought about that. And that is actually like a really great way to think about it. And so in my book, and I know everyone has, you know, people have opinions about parenting styles, parenting approaches. I'm a very big advocate, in the book I talk about this, of taking the approach that allows you to be intentional and present. Well, I feel like present and intentional, because you can't even be present. Like, you have to be, like you said, pay attention, be in the moment, because when we're not, we will be saying stuff like, oh, pick it up, pick up more, you can do more.
Right.
You know, stuff like that. And so, like, we have to really present and intentional.
Yes.
Is he okay?
He's been having a time. He's been having a really bad time. But he's okay. But I hope he doesn't throw up on my white couch, you know? Just one of those things. But who actually cares these days? Does it matter or doesn't? No.
And I feel like there's a lot of others on
It is so tough. And that's another thing, just patience with that too. Because once stuff is happening, what can you do? Nothing. What's the point?
You have to like be in the moment.
Yeah.
You have to be in the moment, which is hard for a lot of us, myself included. Like, it's really hard to just like
take the structure out of it and just, that's what I've been trying to do.
Yeah. It's hard. It gives me anxiety. I have to remember, okay, this is my anxiety, but my is not a reason for me to be inflexible or not stuff right now. Like, I have to prioritize what's needed and figure out another way how I feel.
You okay? Okay, good. Did you go to the bathroom? What do you think? Do you have to throw up? You want to go to sleep.
Almost done, because I don't want him to like have to wait for the baby. But someone in the comments said release and surrender, and then release and surrender. There have been a lot of good comments. There was another one up here that said of how motherhood is very lonely, and I completely agree. And I feel like at the time we were talking about how that's why motherhood communities are important. But also, when I was writing Parents' Guide to Self-Regulation, I really tried to write it from this perspective of, yes, I'm giving you, strategies, tools, helping you through this, but I have been through this too, and so you're not alone. I really want people to read the book and to feel like, oh, I'm not alone.
Right.
One who has gone through this. I'm not taking advice from who doesn't know what they're talking about.
Right.
I've lived it too. Nobody alone, and rather it's just that so many of us are just kind of boxed in because we feel shame or embarrassment to really talk about what's going on. Mm-hmm. So, no, anything either of you have experienced as a mom, I bet you 1,000 we all have experienced it too in some way, shape, or form. Circumstances may be different, but at the core, it's a very issue, and you're not alone.
No, really, and you have to like reach out. It's so important. Like, if you are in a space where you're feeling lonely, I know we lose friends, we like family members don't understand. You feel like you can't be honest with certain people, but sometimes you just have to step out of that comfort zone and finding stuff like, books, people, community. Don't take Instagram as like the people that you look to and are like, oh, this is so great. Actually reach out to them, ask questions, especially to the ones that like you feel you can relate to. The real ones. I honestly don't follow that many influencers that aren't like 1,000%. A lot of the influencers that I follow, and that's because that's what I need. So if it hurts you to follow someone who just seems to live this perfect life, who isn't being like open and honest, if it's hurting you, then you need to take that out. Like, recognize what's toxic, because you want to get out of this lonely space, and that's the only way. You have to be honest with yourself, or mute them or something.
Be real, like really figure like, how do I feel, and however you feel, it's not wrong. There's no shame. There's no judgment. Like, however you feel, you need to identify it, acknowledge it, and then figure out, okay, what do I do to help manage or cope with this feeling? And if it's muting someone, unmuting someone, do what you need to do.
Right. For real.
With your kids.
It's hard though.
Well, I know that we are almost out of time. I have loved this conversation. I feel like we need to plan another one.
Of course. Of course.
Stay-at-home moms specifically, but like I like the direction that this conversation.
Me too. Me too. And I feel like so many of the moms that follow me and ask questions and just need support. I mean, I don't have the answers, but I can definitely relate. But having someone like you is really helpful to bring to my set of followers, because especially a lot of the women who aren't mothers, who aren't wives yet, a lot of them are just saying like they're, kind of taking a look into the future and recognizing what are some things that I'm going to need to be mindful of, so I don't fall into the same traps or the same potholes that people before me have. So we really appreciate you and cannot wait for the book.
Thank you.
Seriously, this is so needed.
I cannot wait. So, and you can pre-order your copy literally right now. When you're done watching, you can go to the link in my bio or Parents Guide to Self-Regulation.com and purchase a copy. You can get it on Amazon, Target, Walmart, Barnes& and Noble, wherever you like to buy books, you can buy this book. The release date is June 18th.
Okay.
So everyone get your copy so that when the release date comes, it'll show up at your house.
Yeah.
Start reading, and I'm so excited for the book to be here so that we can read it together, we can talk about it. So anyone who has questions about it, feel free to shoot me a DM. I see a question, will this live be saved?
Yes. Yes, has to be saved. I know what I'm talking about in therapy next week. That's hilarious.
Right, please talk, because we
Hey,
all,
Shay.
this is deep stuff. So absolutely, some of it needs to be processed in therapy. I talk about reparenting a lot in the book as well, because I just feel
Ooh.
our kids trigger so many big, deep things. And where do you need to talk about?
Like, parenting is so much more. I try to tell people, everyone's like so afraid of becoming a parent for the wrong reasons. You think you're afraid of the children, the critters? No, baby. Be afraid of the mirror that they put up to your face, okay? Because the self-work that's presented to you on a day-to-day has me humbled. It keeps me humbled. Keeps me humbled. Like, and it's an opportunity, like, to learn more, dig in deeper, stay grounded.
Absolutely. And I feel like we should end it on that note. Like, absolutely. I cannot wait for us to have another conversation. We got to figure out, because I liked how this went. I feel like everyone enjoyed it. So stay another one going in the books for us.
Oh, yeah.
But thank you.
You're welcome. Congratulations again.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm so excited. I cannot wait for this and to just feel more grounded, feel more regulated. And I just, I've said this before, I'll say it again. With this book, it really did change my life. I'm not just saying that writing this book changed my life, because it helped me realize, oh, I have a problem and it's something I need to tackle. So being able to write it all out, figure out what strategies work, and then share them with other people is phenomenal. And I'm so excited for you all to feel what I feel now, feeling like on the other side of it, feeling like I'm so much more aware and I understand myself so much better, and I feel more confident and hopeful about how things go between me and my kids. I cannot wait for you all to have that experience too through this book. So pre-order, everyone.
Yes, we can't wait either.
Yeah. Gosh, well, again, we will talk soon. I hope the baby's better. Hope he's.
Well, he's asleep. He went straight to bed.
Oh, I want to go to sleep.
He don't play. Caden is not the one who plays. He's like, I'm going to bed. I just want to be next to you. All right, that's cool.
So sweet. All right, well, get him to bed.
Yes. Talk soon. Bye, guys.
Bye.